All right, welcome to the Next Level Podcast. I'm your host, Jared, and what's your name again?
My name's Taylor. I know it's been a while.
It's been a minute.
Yeah. It's been some time. I don't think we've been in the same room for like more than 10 minutes at a time.
No, he's my long lost brother.
I know.
But hey, we are back, and we have got an exciting episode. We've got a lot of things to talk about, and we've also got a special guest, which is a dear friend and my pastor, Jeremy Saylor from Christian Life Church. We had Noah Ray on, and of course we got dad joke of the. How about two dad jokes today?
Two dad jokes to
one
make
at
up
the beginning,
we can do that,
and one at the end.
Let's do that.
So you have to stick around to the end to get the better one.
I'll save the better one for last.
Yes.
The one at the beginning is just going to be like typical dad joke, but
typical
end is going to set the bar high.
It's going to be your dad joke. Your dad's dad joke.
Your dad's the ultimate dad's joke
at the end.
At the end. It's going to be the daddy of all dad jokes.
Did it? There it was. There it was, folks. There it was. So y'all stick around. All right, folks, welcome back to the Next Level Podcast. I'm your host, Jared, and of course, we got Taylor.
We're here.
We are here in the flesh. It has been a couple of weeks, and
hot minute.
We have been extremely busy, but have missed you guys and missed doing the podcast. As we said in the very first episode, we want to do one every week, but sometimes that just don't happen.
In the words of the great philosopher, you can't always get what you want.
Can't always get what you want. All right. Before they shut us down.
Yeah, we don't want to cover it.
Yeah. But anyway, we have had an exciting couple of weeks. Had the Community Baptist install, which was awesome. Folks down in Maylene. Nobody knows where Maylene is.
If anyone's listening from Alabama, it's Helena-ish.
Yeah. Helena, Alabaster,
yeah.
Maylene. That's the three little towns that connect. So, but we had a fun time there. Big, huge shout out on our on-site productions side. Our receptionist is Gwen, and she is the part-time children's pastor at Maylene, or at Community Baptist in Maylene. Mm-hmm. So, and we've got one of our guys on our productions side used to go to church there, and I know you're down from that area, and Justin's just a stone throws away from that church. So
we've driven by it a couple times and waved as we passed.
Yeah, so we did a lighting upgrade. They really didn't have a lot in the way of stage lighting, mainly just like house lights. They had a couple of just residential track lights that they kind of spotted the stage with, but really wanted to kick it up. We did we rented some stuff to them for their Christmas program 2 years ago.
Okay.
And they realized, wow, can we keep it? And
that's how it goes. We mentioned it with Noah several times. You bring it in with Christmas, and then it's like, well, hang on, let's think about this.
And so it took some time. They had some change in their staff, and ended up still had it on the table, still talking about it and everything, and they finally just pulled the trigger and they said, let's go. So we had fun with that. That was a small little install. Just took us a couple of days, but I mean, that with service calls and just all sorts of other stuff,
Gwen was telling me yesterday that she's getting not complaints, but people were just recognizing, wow, it's bright in here. And she's like, yeah, that's because we got some lights on the stage now.
You can actually see them. So it really improved their live stream, and we've talked about that. I know with Jeremy coming onto the show today, he's a huge advocate of live stream. If you go back and watch Noah's, him being a part of our church, they're a huge advocate. They just say it over and over and over again. And me and you have talked about it. I mean, it's almost like a ministry within a ministry.
Yeah.
That a lot of people just, they see what it has the potential of doing. And if they do it right, then you can really draw people in.
As we learned in COVID, it's something you can't ignore anymore. No, it's a necessity.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's really improved their live stream. And I've, people ask me all the time, they're like, people, the word around the industry is like, you'll spend more on video stuff than you will on anything else. And that's true to a degree. I tell people a lot of times, like, if you don't have your lights right, then you will spend a lot on video stuff. But if you do have your lights right, then, you can not necessarily go to Walmart, but you're not going to have to, you won't break the bank as much.
Right.
And I think they recognized it, and there's been a lot of other churches that have recognized it. We did worked with Chase down at Harvest Family Church in Montgomery. I think when you came on, we installed the LED wall.
That's right.
But you walked in and had seen what we had done before, and now, they had just a couple of park ends up there, and now they have
the works,
the legitimate light rig.
Yeah.
And not everybody can do it, but I'd say, get your lights right before you work on your live stream, or do it in tandem. It's pretty important. But live stream, man, can't talk about it enough. That's
here, and it ain't going nowhere.
Ain't going nowhere. So,
like a dad strapping a something down in the bed of a truck, that ain't going nowhere.
Is that your dad joke?
That might be my dad joke. I have another one lined up, but that one was ready to go.
Sorry. I need
we need a button.
We need a button like the radio stations have the little replay.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna get that.
We'll get that worked out.
We're gonna get that
next week.
Rim shot.
Next, as we've learned, next episode, not next week necessarily.
We do have a busy October.
I feel like I'm already living in November with just how forward my mind is in October, like thinking ahead of everything that's coming ahead. And it's like,
so he'll give you a little bit of backstory. So Taylor really runs a good majority of the operations for Next Level. And so, I probably should know more than I really do, but I just walk into his office sometimes and I'm like, okay, here you go.
What we got?
I walked in the other day and I said, hey, just finalize this install. Let's look at the calendar. And he was like, we ain't got nothing until December.
ain't going to happen until later.
Yeah, so. Which
is fine because, as we're seeing with that install, that they're still kind of working through some red tape and getting some things so that by the time we are able to get stuff ordered, it may be December, it may be January. That's the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're blessed to have what we have, but I tell people all the time you can never really get on board early enough, because typically when people are making those decisions, they're like, oh, it'll take 2-3 weeks.
No.
Not in the world we're living in.
No.
You gotta jump on it quick, and you gotta have long-term expectations.
And as I'm learning with a client we had contact us recently, they've been wanting a system upgrade since like May.
Wow.
And they've contacted people and no one's contacted them back. They contacted one company that will remain nameless that isn't necessarily the most reputable.
Yeah.
And they haven't contacted them back. They installed their previous system. And it just goes back to the relationship that we try to establish that, hey, when we're in there, we're going to take care of you. So, part of the problem is getting in with a company that will take care of you.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also important to deliver clear expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't just ghost somebody, but build a relationship with them and front load the expectations. So when are you wanting this done? See, in our world, we try to not only, funnel the phone call or the email, set up a site visit, but sit down with them and get, expectations on what they're looking for and when they're looking to get it done.
Right.
And at that moment, you can deliver your expectations back to them. Yes, I feel like we can do that. Or I'm not sure, but I'll let you know. And I think a lot of people just have a lot going on and they don't really contact the customer back or whatever. And we're seeing that more and more because people are contacting us. I shared in our video when we were off a few weeks ago about some exciting stuff that we have going on, and a lot of new clients are coming our way. We just we signed on with a local Christian radio station here in Birmingham, and we're already seeing results of that. And, a lot of people will see that. They may not be ready to do it, but they hear about you, or they may be ready to do it, and they contact you, and they want it done like yesterday. And, we get those all the time because of the world we're living in. You have everything readily available. I can get on my phone right now, and in 30 minutes, I can have lunch to me.
Yeah.
And don't even have to move.
Right.
And that's that, instant gratification of, technology and what we have going for us. But in our world, we got to wait for products to come in, and sometimes it's on back order and stuff like that. But if you tell people, oftentimes they're cool with it.
That's what I've found is people, a lot more than a quick job, they just want communication. Like the people that I've spoken with that need a job done quickly, I'll front load them in the beginning, saying, we'll get it done as fast as we can. The way that things are right now, we're at the mercy of shipping times at the minimum. That's kind of dictating when we can set an install date. And once they know that, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. I understand that. And it's a good conversation. It's not a, hey, are y'all ever going to come take care of this? We gave y'all our money, blah, 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 blah.
And that's what, Community Baptist, there was some stuff on back order for that. I think we had originally talked about it a couple of years ago, like I said, but when it kind of came back up to the surface, that was probably 2 months ago, 8 weeks ago. And so it took some time. As soon as we get tracking information, we try to communicate to the customer, hey, looks like everything's been shipped. This is an estimated date. We'll kind of pad it a little bit, maybe not do it as soon as it's supposed to arrive, but like a few days to give, the however they ship it. I'm not going to name any names.
Oh, I was about to, but I won't. Sometimes some of those shipping carriers will bring in a box that looks like they dragged it across the pavement, and you're like, I'm not going to accept that.
Yeah,
turn that back around. Take it on back.
But we'll try to get it done as quick as, or not try. We typically we don't sit on anything. We get the scheduling done as it's in transit, and get out there and do it. But just for a very small job of things that typically are readily available, we're still looking at up to 2 months from the date, we come to an agreement and actually get the install complete.
Right.
And some of it's taking longer. We're seeing speaker manufacturers that aren't, they're not warehousing a lot of their speakers. Some of the higher end speakers that we use from, JBL, RCF, Rinkus Hines, all those companies, you have your like portable PA stuff, you have like your bottom of the barrel, install stuff, but the higher end stuff that we're looking at, like column line arrays, things of that nature, which is just really the higher end professional grade type equipment, they're like, yeah, we got like one or two, but, if you need 4 or 5, we're now making that to order.
Yeah, because that's expensive to make and have it sit on a shelf.
Yeah, and so that's the issues we're running into, which again they're not issues if the customer knows that on the front end,
mm-hmm.
and a lot of our customers are fine with that. I mean, I look at other areas. I was talking to Samantha, my wife, and she said, we were talking about like, if you let the customer know, they're oftentimes cool with it, because say you have to call the cable company to come out and install new cable. Well, they're not going to be there in 30 minutes.
No.
They're not going to be there in 3 days. Sometimes it may take them 2 weeks to get out to your house to install that cable.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to say this, but if you want it bad enough, you'll wait the time to actually get it done. And that's kind of the world we're living in.
That was the case when I moved into one of my houses in Talladega. It was a place that hadn't been lived in. It hadn't been lived in the time that they installed cable around. Mm-hmm. So it didn't have cable running up to it. And I moved in. I needed internet. I was like, I'll call the cable company, get them to come out. They told me that a construction crew would have to come out and run aerial wire along the poles and through the woods and get it to my house before I can get cable. And it ended up being a good 2 months before they got out there. And I hadn't paid anything up until the day that they first installed the actual internet cable to my house, but I had to wait, and I got a little frustrated because nothing was communicated to me, and it was never there was never even a time frame given of.
Wow.
Typically this kind of takes 6 to 8 weeks, and to add to our point. If I had known that, and that's what I told them on the phone. If I just know what to expect, I'll chill out a little bit. There's nothing I can do. So
I gotta have a goal.
I'm not trying to get you to come out now, but give me an idea of what I'm waiting for and all that. So it's a real deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish everything would get back to normal. I mean, there was a day and time where we could literally. We didn't have a lot of back orders to ever worry about. We could order something. I mean, heck, sometimes we could even overnight it if we had to. Mm-hmm. But now, it's just you get it when you get it. And sometimes, like we've just talked about, some carriers, they aren't even making guarantees. Mm-mm. They're telling people, well, you can overnight it, and if it doesn't get there, we'll give you your money back.
Yeah.
Which basically gets them off the hook.
Right.
Because if I want to overnight something, I want it overnight.
I need it. I probably have a goal the next day that I need it the next day.
Yeah.
Because I'm probably not paying for overnight just for funsies.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we're definitely not. So, well, awesome. What do we got coming up?
Let's see. We've got a couple site visits to check out, new installs that are a couple upgrades that we're looking at. We have a big job that looks like we got the green light on, still kind of keeping that under the vest a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
But that one's going to be a cool one. That one's going to be fun to see the final product, because we haven't done it's an audio system. We haven't done an audio system. We've done new mixers and stuff like that, but not a full rehaul since I've been here.
Well, and I think a lot of people are still in that analog to digital age, where there is a lot of people just throwing in new mixers. Mm-hmm. This will be our first full audio gut.
Yeah. It's going to be cool.
And under Next Level, I mean, you've done a ton of stuff with full audio renovations.
I've done installations back at Shaco, full audio systems, and so we have that experience. It's not that we don't have that experience, but we haven't done a full system that we've been able to turn on and relish in.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to be able to, like, I've always wanted to, like, even, and I haven't done a new construction.
Yeah.
You know,
that would be awesome.
And I think that's kind of where we're going to, and I think that opportunity will present itself. But like I said, I mean, we've gone in, replaced speakers. We've gone into another one, replaced tons of soundboards that we've replaced.
That's been a big thing because as people have upgraded their live stream, part of that comes with upgrading their mixer to be able to get decent audio to live stream, and that's a quick something they can throw in.
Yeah, between the digital mixers and the 600 megahertz, where we replaced a ton of microphones. I mean, that's been the bulk of the business. But this one is taking out all the speakers, taking out all the amps, taking out all the mixers,
Floor plates, like adding new floor plates, everything.
Yeah, pockets in the stage. I mean, microphones for the choir, new wireless systems. I mean, it's just everything.
It's an overhaul.
Yeah.
And that's going to be over awesome.
So, look at that Next Level cup.
Mine's in my office. I thought about it. Jeez, that's pretty.
Man,
I like it. It keeps mine too warm.
I'll just put a sticker on it.
Yeah, we'll put I like my coffee gulping temperature. I don't like to sip scalding coffee. So when I make some coffee,
he comes in the morning. He goes up to the coffee maker. He makes his coffee, and that thing sits on his desk for a good hour and a half.
Let it chill a little bit,
and then within 15 minutes, it's gone. But it gets to that perfect temperature, and he's like, go, 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 go.
Take it down. Because it's like eating a fresh hot pizza that scalds the roof of your mouth. I don't want to lose taste buds. I want to enjoy it and savor it.
I try not to scald my mouth, but there has been moments where I've been so hungry, and then it doesn't register with me how hot I'm about to stick something in my mouth, and I was like, I wasn't that hungry.
My wife's mom cooks just the best soup, and I was excited about it. It was like broccoli cheddar soup, so rich and come on.
Let's go to lunch.
And so it had been sitting on the boil, simmering, kind of cooking everything in. And so we poured our bowls, and I sat down, blew on a pretty decent amount. Like I said, I'm pretty seasoned at wanting good temperate things in my mouth. Well, so I took a bite, and it was the hottest thing I've ever put in my mouth, even after blowing on it. And it blistered the roof of my mouth to the point that I could put my tongue on the blister and move it around, and that wasn't a good
Obviously,
day.
It impacted you enough to remember that story.
It was not a good day, but the soup was good.
Man, ever since I was young, my mom made broccoli cheese soup, and she put it in the crock pot, and she let that thing simmer on low all day long. I mean, it was cheese soup at that point because the broccoli had already broken down to the point where you didn't even taste it. So anyway,
so this is folks, the cooking segment by Jared and Taylor.
Yeah, I was fixing to say bye, folks. We're going to lunch. So, awesome. Well, hey, next we've got Pastor Jeremy Saylor from Christian Life Church. Y'all have heard me talk about Christian Life. It has been my church for now 7 years, and it's just, a good church community, I think, is so very important to every human on the face of the planet. I mean, me and you have talked about community when you and Abigail moved from Talladega to y'all are in Montevallo. Y'all found a awesome community that y'all just have. It's more of like it's friends.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like so many people like put pastors up on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Which they should be to some degree.
Right.
But I just think it's awesome. Like the relationship I have with my pastor, the relationship you have with your pastor is just phenomenal. And it just, I've only been to a few churches, some of which I was a part of because of work. It was more of a job than, it was anything, but, getting engaged. But when I came to CLC, man, it was just a breath of fresh air. He loves our business and loves what we're about and really supports us. And so bringing him onto the show was just kind of a natural thing. And, can't wait to get him in here. So, well, let's do that. So we're going to take a short break and we'll see you back here. Welcome back to the Next Level Podcast. I am your host, Jared, being joined by Taylor, and we've got the one and the only Mr. Jeremy Saylor, Pastor Jeremy Saylor.
What's up, guys?
What's up?
How are y'all doing today?
Doing good.
Good.
You look good.
All right, well, you look better.
Well,
I'm glad someone thinks that.
Well, I'm here to be an encouragement to you. Every husband needs a little encouragement.
That's right. That's right. He's got a baby on the way, so
Yeah.
he needs a little extra.
Maybe a little extra.
Needs a little blessing.
Blessing. So, well, man, we tried to get you on a couple of weeks ago, and, the old COVID.
Rona.
Or the Rona. The Rona got us.
Yes, it did.
But I'm glad to get you on. We had Noah, give you a little backstory. Pastor Jeremy is my pastor from Christian Life Church, and we had Noah Ray on, which is our executive pastor, and we'll probably get more and more on as time goes on. But, he has been a blessing to me and Samantha and really our entire company for many years, and our friendship and relationship and all the ships, has been awesome over the years. And I want to go, just kind of start the conversation off. Tell us a little bit about your backstory and, kind of what led up to you coming to Christian Life.
So I went to the University of Alabama.
Roll Tide.
And I feel confident saying that even to my congregation because they have a ton of my money and I've earned the right to say it. Care what anybody says. My wife graduated from the University of Alabama. Taylor.
Roll Tide.
Thank you.
I graduated from the University of Alabama.
Roll Tide. So my wife and I met at the university, and I was on my way to being a college professor. I was pursuing a PhD in political science and was nearing completion of that. I had everything done. All of my coursework was done. I was working on my dissertation. And this church that I was a part of at the time, the church that I met Meg at, was asked me to be their associate pastor, just kind of out of the blue. And I went to them and said, I haven't gone to school for that. That's not what I've been pursuing. And they said, we know that, but we've seen how you serve. And so we'd like to offer you that position, and we'll worry about the credential stuff later and the education and all that kind of stuff as you come on staff. So I started there and served there for 4 years. And then 14 years ago, Christian Life Church here in Birmingham contacted me about becoming the executive pastor. And so that's how we made the transition from Tuscaloosa to Birmingham. Now, a little bit further backstory. My dad's a pastor. I grew up in ministry, been around ministry my whole life, serving in ministry really since I was born. It's kind of how it goes when you're a PK. And so I kind of had ministry in the back of my mind the whole time. And really thought when I was graduating high school, that was the direction that the Lord was going to lead me, but I didn't have an educational avenue that really opened for me to do that. And I had a scholarship at the University of Alabama. And so I was wrestling with it as I was graduating high school. And my dad called me in his office and said, hey, I just want to ask you a few questions because I know you're wrestling with your future and the direction that you need to go. And he said, do you think God wants you to walk in his will for your life? And I said, well, yeah, God's good. He doesn't lead us in a wrong path. He always leads us in a good path. And he said, well, do you want to walk in God's will for your life? And I said, well, yeah, absolutely. You see me wrestling with this decision that I have to make. And then he made the statement that just kind of rocked me. And it's been something, or the question that he asked me rocked me, and it's been something that's kind of guided me at different points. He said, then why are you acting like God's trying to trick you? Mm-hmm. Walk through the door that he's opened. And then the door that is beyond that will open as you walk through the door that's in front of you. And so I walked through the door and got undergraduate degrees and graduate degrees from the University of Alabama, master's in public administration. And so fast forward, and now I'm pastoring Christian Life Church. And the things that God sent me through, I would not have been equipped to pastor the church that I'm pastoring if I had not gone the route that he sent me.
Wow.
Nice. And it's just kind of a principle that we say at our church quite regularly. God's always doing more than we think he's doing.
Yep.
There's always more going on than we see. We just got to trust him and walk through the doors that he opens and understand that it's all going to work together if we're faithful just to keep walking.
That's awesome. Well, I can attest to the fact that ever since I, touched the grounds of Christian Life Church, there's one word. If I could sum up what our church is in one word, it would be more. Mm. We really dove into Ephesians 3:20. That's right. Immeasurably more.
That's right.
And now we're into another season where it's like God has more.
That's right.
And so it's always been that way. And I just think in some of the very first times that we sat down for lunch and we talked, that has always resonated inside of me.
Right.
Because even in your own life, you were walking in a completely opposite direction.
Absolutely.
Of what even your dad has pursued in his life. And God said, you know what? I've got more.
Yep.
And he put you on a different path.
Absolutely. And if I had have done it the way that I thought I needed to do it, and the way I thought I needed to do it, I needed to go to Bible college. I needed to go to seminary. I needed to do those things in that order. Graduate high school, go to Bible college, graduate Bible college, go to seminary, and still needed and did a lot of those things. Mm-hmm. But how I went about doing it, I would not have been prepared to pastor the church that I pastor today and have for the last decade. Because, I became the pastor in 2011. We're still in the midst of the Great Recession for all practical purposes in 2011. And the financial strain that not only businesses but churches and organizations were dealing with across the country. Having the background that I had in public administration and the education in that prepared me to be able to navigate, in particular, the business side of the organization and the church well through that season and to, figure out how do we move forward from where we are. And so I would have never learned those things in Bible college or in seminary, but God knew that I needed them. And that's where it's just about trust. I mean, we've just got to faithfully follow the path that he has laid out especially when it doesn't make sense. Yeah. We just have to trust that he's doing more than we think he's doing. He knows more than we know. Shocker. Yeah. We're not Surprise. God. He is. Yeah. Let's just trust him and let him be God. And I have found that as long as I keep walking, God will direct me. Yeah. It's when I stop walking is when his voice kind of becomes deafened in my ears. And it's kind of like our GPS in our cars. Like when I love my GPS and I hate my GPS. Because when I plug in an address in my GPS, and if I ever deviate from that path, it's rerouting. It goes crazy.
Yeah.
But if I get off the path, it will always get me back on it as long as I'm moving. But the moment that I stop, it starts talking. It stops talking. And God's that way, I think, in a lot of we get paralyzed because we're analyzing, it's paralysis by analysis, all the different opportunities and all the different avenues. What if this and what if that? Just take the step in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And God will direct you.
Well, and that's what I've learned over the past couple of years. I mean, just in owning a business and, the direction we're taking, I tell people all the time, like, don't always question the door of opportunity.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You've got, I'm not taking huge risk. I'm not putting my family and my employees in,
Right.
a financial strain. But, I just feel like you said, if we can continue to walk, God, we may hit what we feel like was a bad decision.
Right.
But it teaches us something.
Yeah.
Even in those bad decisions.
Absolutely.
And I don't even consider them bad decisions, but going back to what you were talking about with kind of what you felt like God was preparing, I know a lot of pastors, and what I really see in you is a lot of the financial aspects of it. A lot of churches, in our world, when we talk to them about audiovisual and some of the things, they almost get sticker shocked.
Yeah.
When it comes to that. For you, I personally know, and you can probably elaborate on this a little bit. Our church was not always financially stable, and it was something that you really focused on, while at the same time trying to move a church into a new season, a new generation, technology-wise.
Right.
You had to spend some money to make some money, but at the same time, we were paying off stuff. So there's always a huge balance to that. Kind of talk a little bit about your experience with that.
Yeah, so when I became the pastor at Christian Life Church, we had, I'll just give you a little backstory, $2.6 million of debt. And our monthly mortgage payment was $19,160.38 a month. Yeah, vomit now. Taylor's over here. Yeah.
Palms just got sweaty.
To add to the misery, when I became the pastor in May of 2011, there was $5,000 in the bank. And 2 weeks later, we had that mortgage payment due. And so, the recession, like, as I said a moment ago, just ravaged churches in a lot of different ways, and like it did many businesses. And so when I became the pastor, I really felt like the Lord directed me to do three things. Number one, balance the budget at all cost. And so we did that. And number two, get the focus off of the finances and onto the Spirit. And we did that by balancing the budget. And then number three is make our community mourn the day our church ever ceased to exist. We're going to love our community, and we're going to serve our community. And so that was kind of our strategy out the gate. And as we balance the budget, so we have that debt, we have that mortgage, but we also have maintenance costs on top of that. And so we've got about 50,000 square feet of space, and we had that debt on buildings that are aging. So today our sanctuary building is almost 25 years old. Our education building is 20 years old, and then our student center is 15 years old. So we had this crazy perfect storm of incredible mortgage payment in addition to maintenance cost. And nothing had been updated in quite some time because of the recession. So I walked into a situation, we got to keep paying the mortgage, and we got to improve these different things. And so, but we balanced the budget, and then we started creating a list of all of the things that needed to be improved. And then we prioritized that list. And we would, honestly, Jared, we would probably review that every 3 to 6 months. And as dollars and revenue came in that allowed us to improve things, we would knock things off the list, just one step at a time, at what we could afford to do. And so we did that probably for the first 3 or 4 years until we got in a situation where our financial history and our stability was healthy enough that we could refinance our mortgage. And when we did that, I think we did that in 2015, and our mortgage payment went from $19,000 to $13,000 a month. And so that was a game changer. $6,000 a month is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then we took those dollars and we just didn't spend them. We really set aside a capital fund because we knew that there was a lot of technology upgrades that we needed to do. There was a lot of physical improvements that we needed to do. And so the board and I sat down and just every year from that point on we had our regular budget, but then we also had a capital budget. And as dollars came in, we're above what we needed to be, we would set them aside, and then piece by piece we would go after the different capital improvements that we needed to make.
That's awesome. Well, I know that we're in a big, huge push right now because we're looking to make a major upgrade to our church, and that's not only, that's outside in.
Oh yeah.
And talk a little bit about where we're going with that and technology.
Yeah. So we over the last really decade, we've kind of piecemealed different parts of the capital budget that we could improve facility-wise, technology-wise, and all that kind of stuff. And about just before the pandemic really began, I sat down with our trustees and our board and started talking through really kind of a master plan for our campus of what we needed to do to renovate it, from our entryway to our signage to the physical look on the outside, things that we need to do on the inside, and just a major overhaul. Because we knew that we had done all the things that we could do without a major overhaul. So we kind of came to a point where all the boxes had gotten checked that we knew needed to happen without checking the massive box.
The big boy.
The big boy. And so we sat down and we broke that even down into about 3 different phases. And really, during the pandemic, Jared, you guys helped us to achieve phase 1, which was a major overhaul of our AVL system so that we could live stream effectively in the midst of the pandemic.
Yep.
And we did that in May of last year and made a significant investment in that. And I think the investment was close to $100,000 total that we did in our AVL system. And we needed to do that because that now is the front door of a church. That's now how you minister to people. There's so many people that have still not returned to church, and that is how they stay connected. That's how they get and receive ministry, and is still reaping incredible dividends today for us being able to minister to people via the digital platform. And it's been excellent for us being able to do that. Yeah. I saw a statistic. George Barna, if you're familiar with him, George Barna is a Christian researcher, pretty well known throughout the Christian community. And pre-COVID, he said that an individual would visit a church virtually 9 times before it visited physically the first time. Mm-hmm. That was pre-COVID.
Wonder what it's now.
Yeah. Well, it's a multiplication probably at 9.
It didn't go down.
It did not go down. It probably went up by 2 to 3-fold. And so the digital platform that we have is how we are ministering to people today, and we have to maximize that. And so we did phase 1. Now we're looking at phase 2, which is a complete overhaul of, we're going to paint, redo the interior, and upgrade our AVL. We've done a lot of upgrades to our AVL. Jared, you and I have talked about this from the front of the house to the back of the house, but the one thing that we really haven't done is upgrade our speaker system. We've got great equipment as far as instruments. We have a great sound system from soundboard and computers and all that kind of stuff there. They're taking care of that. But the one thing that pushes all of that out, which is a huge chunk of change that we haven't invested in yet, is our speakers and really upgrading our AVL from a LED wall and things like that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's funny because the pandemic not only has changed, what people will do online, but it is completely flipped from, like, pre-COVID, people would ask, what's the most important thing? Mm-hmm. And I would tell them sound, lights, video. Mm-hmm. And now it's video, lights, and sound.
Well, video and lights go hand in hand because you can have the greatest camera in the world, but if your lighting stinks, it doesn't come across through the camera. Yeah. And so those 2 things go really hand in hand. And then you have the audio after that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, we really are living like we were always living in a digital age. But people were like, you know what? Yeah. I'll just get it whenever I get it.
Yep. COVID stomped the gas.
Stomped it.
Steroids, baby.
Yep, absolutely. And people aren't looking back. I mean, I really think, like, somebody told me in a marketing class one time, it takes somebody 7 times to see you for it to really click. You know, see your logo, hear your commercial, you know, see your website, see a truck with your name on it.
Right.
You know, 7 different times of seeing next level,
then it
next
connects.
level, next level, and it'll eventually click. So that 9 times of people, I mean, that's
Not shocking at all.
It's not shocking at all. You know, for people to want to kind of check you out, and then, okay, now I'll go.
So we have some gentlemen on our board that are executives in different corporations, from banking to hospitals to, you know, so on and so forth in our community. And again, we're in conversations pre-COVID talking about master plan, moving things forward. And I had one of them ask me, what's the number one thing on your future radar that we need to start addressing today? And I said, is our online platform. This was probably in 2019, 2018, 2019, something like that. And he was excited and pleased because he said, in every significant business boardroom meeting in America, that's the thing that people are recognizing today. It is changing banking. It is changing healthcare. It is changing. I mean, now you don't have to talk to anybody to do banking. Now you can do. I forget the exact terminology they use, but the healthcare, I can have a doctor do. I can do a video chat with a doctor now.
Yeah, like teledoc.
Teledoc. Yeah. I even did that during the pandemic this past year, and so. The online platform and all that entails, that obviously is the AVL, but it's also the social media and it's your website and it's all the different things that you do, is a significant part of what we do, because that's how you get in people's doors. It's how you get in front of people. It's how you get in their world, because everybody in the world has one of these devices now.
Yeah.
And it's not just an American or first world thing. You go anywhere in the world and people have these.
Yeah.
And it's raised, I think it's personally raised the bar of the expectation of quality as well. It's the reason that you can't skimp on AVL things today.
Well, you look at it like this. In 2019, how many people knew about Zoom or used Zoom?
Absolutely.
And now it's like it's the thing.
Yeah.
It's because that's how we had to communicate to people during the pandemic.
I saw a church consultant, again, this was pre-pandemic, was talking about the rise of the online digital platform, and said that the vast majority of churches in America spent about 3 to 5% of their payroll budget on the digital arena.
Yeah.
And they said the thought was then that if they were going to remain relevant. And relevant is, let me clarify what that means. It doesn't mean that they're cutting edge and they're cool and all that kind of stuff. What they were really saying is, if they're just going to be on people's radar, relevant as being people are aware of your presence, they were going to have to start designating 30% of their payroll budget to the online digital platform. Or churches would just cease to exist because people just don't know that they're there. Because everything happens through the digital. So I think it's not something that is a luxury any longer. I think it's a necessity. And because everybody is doing it, the quality of what you see has risen. And so you can't skimp on the quality.
Yeah.
You got to do it right.
Well, so getting away from the online thing, let's talk about the in-person thing. Like, where do you feel like, based upon your experience, where do you feel like CLC is going when it comes to visual things and, AVL and where do you feel like really just the church as a whole? Because there's a lot of churches that are on different platforms when it comes to, some are more visual, some are not. We talked to Michael Adler on the last episode, and I mean his church is very, being a Baptist church, Shades Mountain Baptist Church, they have a lot of high-end visual things, but we're more. We've got the movers and we've got the fog and we've got the different things. So there's so many different churches that are on different spectrums.
Yeah.
Where do you feel like it's going, with our church and the church as a whole?
Well, I think that, maybe I'll speak to church as a whole to begin with. And I think everybody has to understand that excellence is a moving target and that excellence is based on what you can do right where you are today. What Shades Mountain Baptist, which is a great church and does things at an exceptional level, what they're able to do because of their resources, both in people and in capital, versus even what we're able to do are different. They're on different ballparks. They're different planes. So if you're listening out there, I don't want you to feel like you have to do things like they do because you're just not going to be able to.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean you still can't be excellent.
Yep.
Excellence is where you doing the best that you can with what you have where you are. And so I would encourage people today that take advantage of the resources that you have, like with on-site productions and Next Level, and understanding that there are people that can come alongside you that can help raise the bar for where you are today.
Yep.
A year from now, they can raise it again for where you are then. And I think comparison is the trap of the enemy. And I think pastors and churches fall into that a lot, and it steals joy and contentment and satisfaction. And people don't need to get caught up in that. And it's easy to do.
Yeah.
You see the big LED wall and all these other different things, all the flash and the light. Well, I want that. Well, I don't have the budget for that. Okay.
Yeah.
So what do I do? Well, we're going to do the best we have with what we have where we are today.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do think that in general, I think because the digital medium is so prevalent and so important, what you do in person has to be translatable online, or you're losing half of your audience potentially.
And really, that takes a lot more effort.
Takes a lot
to translate that online as it does just jumping on a stage.
Absolutely. Well, Jared, when the pandemic began, you guys came to us and said, "What can we do to help?" And so we weren't having in-person services. And so we just did a service just as a digital, there's no people in person. There was nothing. We tailored it for the online experience. And we kept tweaking it. And about the time we got it right, we opened the doors back up.
Yep.
And, but it was good and we were thrilled with it. But now, we're back in person and now I've got to walk this line between I got people in front of me, but also have a congregation that is joining me online. And it's really easier to do one or the other, not both.
Yeah. It's easy to forget about the camera.
Yep.
To give people a little bit of backstory, we had tossed around the idea, do we just do it in the sanctuary or do we think outside the box?
Right.
We ended up essentially setting up a studio
in one of our rooms.
Yeah. And it was very intimate. It was very personal. And the only thing people had to look at was the cameras.
They had just my beautiful bald head.
That's it. That's it. And so, now that we're back in person, I mean, it's easy to forget.
Yeah.
Of that experience and how much that means to the people that are watching online.
Yep.
I think we've done a great job.
Well, I'll give you a testimony of the last couple of weeks. In our service, I just felt like the Lord had kind of given me an encouraging word for somebody. And I wasn't sure if it was for somebody in our congregation or somebody watching online. And so I just kind of said what I felt like the Lord was leading me to say. And testimonies that we got on the backside of that was for people online. It was a family in Memphis, Tennessee that's never been to our church, but is aware of our church because of a family in our church. And so that family in Memphis, when they don't go to their church, they actually watch our church online.
Nice.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. And so anyway, I just kind of shared what I felt like the Lord laid upon my heart. And the testimony was the couple just kind of looked at each other, started crying, and just raised their hands and started worshiping and thanking God that He knows where they are and He knows what they're going through. And that was 2 weeks ago. And then last week, something similar happened. And there was a lady that attends our church from Tuscaloosa. She typically drives, but she's in healthcare, and with the Delta variant kind of on the rise, she stayed home because she works in the healthcare community, and was just having a rough day mentally. And I shared what I shared, and she let one of our small group leaders know that word was for me. And I'm so thankful that even though I'm home, God's still ministering to me through the medium of the online service, online That's campus. Awesome. So it's it's you have to do these things because number one, it connects people that need to be connected that can't be connected, and then it also is a door for other people that are looking for something. And how are they going to look? Well, they're first going to look online.
Yeah,
and that's your gateway, your door, and so it's so important.
Yeah, well, I think YouTube being as popular as it is, and having, Facebook, YouTube, website, and different platforms. I mean, there's no reason for people to not be able to have options out there, if the church is willing to give it.
Yeah,
and so we hear testimonies all the time. You hear testimonies, I hear testimonies. Me and Samantha are very involved in the broadcast aspect of it, and have been since the pandemic started. But I think it's been in the 8 years that I've been going to CLC. I think that has been the biggest
transformation.
Yeah, biggest.
I mean, if lest we forget, we started with an iPhone.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
I remember. Unfortunately, I didn't want you to bring it up. But.
Well, but again, necessity is the mother of creation.
Yeah.
And so it was January, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And we had an ice storm here in Birmingham, or a semi-ice storm. There were areas that were a little bit dicey, but then there were areas it was fine. And so pastors, we have church. And so if you can make it, come on. Don't put yourself in danger, but come on. So people came. And so we're sitting there talking, me and you and Noah and Meg and Michael Sutton was there talking. We're like, all right, we got an iPhone. Let's just stream it. And so we started streaming.
Facebook Live.
We Facebook Lived it via an iPhone. I don't recommend that. But you do what you got to do. But that literally was the starting point for our online platform.
And it has always been that way.
Yeah.
That was the start, and it was like, how can we not come off of this?
Yeah, exactly.
And then the next stage,
Right.
The pandemic hit.
What do we do?
And like you said, for a solid 2 months.
Oh yeah,
we
every bit of 10 weeks.
We perfected it.
Yep.
And then me and you sat down together, and you were like, okay, I'm thinking about opening the doors back up.
Yep.
But I don't want to come off of this.
Right. So how do we do it?
How do we do it? And I think it's just it's people's passion and desire to want to make things excellent.
Yep.
You say excellent probably more than any other pastor I've ever heard. And it's, but you ingrain that in the people that go to CLC, and we want things to be excellent.
Yeah.
I mean, we felt like, an ice storm with an iPhone was about as excellent as we were going to get that day.
That's all we could do. You know what? It met the need. People that wanted, and I think that day, we had 100, 200 people watching online via an iPhone.
Yep.
Well, you know what? We wouldn't have had that if we didn't do it. And so one of the things I've learned is that don't let what you're not able to do keep you from what you are able to do. Well, that's not where I wanted it. That's not how I wanted it to be. I didn't want it to be an iPhone. That's not how I envisioned kicking this ministry off.
Yeah.
Right? But it was the door that opened. And here's our starting point. We ain't going to stay here. We've done it. Now what do we got to do to keep moving forward and keep making it better and get to the place where it's actually an enjoyable experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Noah said it when he came on the show. It was, you got to work with what you got.
That's right.
And you got to make that excellent.
That's right. 100%.
And then we'll move. We'll constantly, the regular human being doesn't want to just be content.
No.
We're constantly looking for the next thing.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what me and Taylor experience on a daily basis is, people they want the Cadillac.
That's right.
They can't afford it sometimes.
Well, we all got champagne taste.
We can work towards it. Yeah, we can work towards it.
That's right.
We can work towards it. You got anything? You got anything?
I've just been learning and soaking it all up. No, the biggest thought that comes into my head is that if you're faithful with little, you'll be faithful with much. And
that's exactly right.
Being excellent in everything you do at the level that you can do it, is at the very least showing the Lord that you're faithful. And
one of the things the Lord spoke to me early on in the process, and it applies to our AVL, but really to the organization as a whole, church as a whole, is God told me, he said, if you'll do what you know to do, I'll do what you can't. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times we don't see the things that we want to see because we're not willing to do what we know to do where we are today. Mm-hmm. And if we'll just take that step and, okay, God, this is what I have. It's all I have. He doesn't ask us what we don't have. He just asks us what's in your hand. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you know the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000, he didn't ask the disciples, what don't you have? He said, what do you have? Well, we got 5 loaves and 2 fish. That'll work.
And he didn't tell them what they needed.
No.
All right, we got 5,000 people. We'll probably need so many fish. So it was, what do you have?
Yeah. So 6 years ago, we had an iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's put it to work. Yep. And then we move forward from there.
Yep.
And when God
bought us a little JVC camera after that.
Brought us a JVC camera. And then
put a 4x4 with a tripod head.
Yeah.
But, when the pandemic began, Jared, we had probably been talking, for a year to 18 months about the things that we needed to do to go to the next level.
Yeah.
And we hadn't pulled the trigger on those things yet.
Pre-pandemic, I mean, we had talked about broadcast, cleaning out a room, completely out, and obviously, we knew what we needed to do. And when the pandemic hit,
that was the catalyst.
We just went to work.
Let's just go do it. That's exactly right.
It's almost like you could get away with not doing it until you had to do it.
Yeah.
And that was the case for a lot of churches. Like, some churches were found, and they started with an iPhone during the pandemic.
But having a lot of people that are on our team that are willing at that moment to drop what they're doing and make it happen.
Yeah.
It was, again, it goes back to the fact that there's a lot of people that have the wine taste, but they don't have the budget. But you have to have that vision and that passion to, to have something to strive for.
Yeah, absolutely. We should always be striving to be better.
Yeah.
Always better. Never can. I want to be content, but not satisfied. I'm thankful for what God's done. I'm grateful for where He's brought us, but He has more. Mm-hmm. And we haven't arrived. And as a song we sing, if we're not dead, God's not done. And so we need to keep moving. Yep. I'm going to keep moving forward, keep pressing, and thankful, filled with gratitude and thanksgiving for what He's done and where He's brought us and where we used to be versus where we are today. But He has more, and I want that.
Awesome.
I think that's a mic drop right there.
Come on. Sorry.
You can't really drop these.
Can't really drop these, can you?
No, I can't.
We'll just say boom.
Boom. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, absolutely.
Taking time. I know you've got a busy schedule. Got a lot of irons in the fire.
We got a few irons. A few irons stirring.
Few irons. Well, if you want more information, we're going to put it down in the description. clcbham.com is where you can connect with us. We have our online service on YouTube and Facebook. And
that's right.
Come visit us on Valleydale Road.
We're on all the social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
Awesome.
YouTube, you name it, we're there. Check us out on our website, clcbham.com.
Awesome. Well, y'all stick around. We got more. All right, welcome back to the Next Level Podcast. You've been saving up, haven't you?
It's like built up to the point that
we were just talking about all of our travels and everything, and you're like just amped.
Back in it.
It's like, yes, we're doing another podcast.
We're taking this podcast to the next level.
Wow.
This one's been full of little one-liners that I've...
Yeah. This is the most Taylor has ever talked on a podcast.
It is. That was good coffee.
Was it the right temperature?
It was the right temperature, and I sucked it down.
All right. Anyway, so we have a product review. That's what we do at this moment in our episode. And one thing, we were talking about, like, what do we do? And, it was funny because Taylor was like, why don't we do, like, the Allen and Heath SQ? Mm-hmm. We have used that board so much, both in work on a daily basis for, like, production events and things like that. We've installed a ton of them. Mm-hmm. And me, I've got 2 at my church.
Yeah.
Both our front of house and our broadcast is an SQ. And so, people ask me all the time, they're like, do you have a favorite board? This would probably be my favorite board, but really, I want to kind of do a disclaimer. Like, I think there is a ton of boards out there on the market.
Oh, yeah.
And every board has, like, their place in line.
If I always thought, because I was very brand loyal based on just impressions. Like, I was impressionable. People would tell me, oh, well, I like this. And I'm like, okay, well, I like that too. And I would stay brand loyal. And then finally one day I was like, none of these companies would be in business if they made a bad product, just like start to finish.
Yeah.
So, like, there's something valuable to every mixer.
Well, I think, every good company, because there's some companies that are just on the brink of sucking it up, but most companies that have been in business a long time, like Allen Heath, like Behringer, company after company after company, they have marketing people that are very smart, a lot smarter than we are. Mm-hmm. And they are looking at products that they can make both in what it does and price point. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like, different companies are out there that I would push people in a certain direction on certain parameters. Mm-hmm. The one reason we went with SQ was because we were with Behringer. We were on an X32, and X32 does 40 channels. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are like, no, it doesn't. It does 32, and it does 40. So
40 plus 8,
and so
32 plus 8.
Yeah, and so we ended up going with SQ for 2 reasons. I had done a lot of research. This was before the Avantis board had come out, which I think is pretty dadgum cool.
It was pretty sweet.
And that's kind of their step up from SQ. But I have personal experience with SQ, and the reason we went with that was because it gave us 8 additional inputs. Mm-hmm. And it runs at a higher audio sample rate. Mm-hmm. And so we have put a number of churches in the SQ board. Mm-hmm. They have 3 different kind of form factors.
Yeah.
You have a 16 plus 1, which that's
fader. You still have the...
Yeah, you still have 48 channels that can come into the board, but different form factors, so different size. Mm-hmm. You got 16 faders, multiple layers that you can flip through,
right,
plus your 1 master. Mm-hmm. And then you go to 24 plus 1, and then you go to 32 plus 1. So what we are rocking at CLC is a SQ5, which is a 16 plus 1, and an SQ7 at front of house, which is a 32 plus 1.
That's sweet.
Yeah, so we really, and it's cool because you're able to, like, easily lay out your inputs. You don't, in some consoles, you have to go into the routing, and you have to say, okay, I want input 1 going to fader 16. Mm-hmm. In this, you just lay it out, and then you could easily drag and drop complete input and fader to certain areas on layers. Mm-hmm. And I can actually have and actually have this set up on our smaller board and broadcast where I have like the pastor's mic on all 3 layers.
Yeah.
So that if he jumps on the stage, just, we're Pentecostal, so you never know you never know what's gonna happen. So I always want to have him on no matter what layer I'm. If I'm working on the drums and he jumps up there, boom, I can just hit him. Mm-hmm. If I'm on the next layer where I've got my vocals and the rest of my band, he's there.
Boom.
And so forth and so on. So
that's really handy.
It's really cool. Some of the specs that I just kind of wanted to touch on: 96 kilohertz, which most boards right now are running at 48. Mm-hmm. So you are you're doubling your audio quality essentially. And then they use what's called an S-Link system, which they have stage boxes that will digitally process to a single Cat5 cable. Mm-hmm. So you can put stage boxes on, just have a single Cat5 come to your board from your stage. And what's crazy is that high-resolution audio with the S-Link is running at 0.1 milliseconds, which is it's the leader in the lowest latency that you can get. And they also have an app that you can control with your iPad. You can put it on your Android or iPhone for your people on stage if you got in-ears that you're running, wireless in-ears. They also have their ME their ME series, which is their personal monitor mix boxes that, the way we've got ours set up is we have our band, our drums, keyboards, guitars, they're all on ME1s.
People that aren't going anywhere.
They're not moving.
Yeah.
But then our front line is on wireless body packs, and then they control it with their iPhone.
Right.
Or we even have an iPad that we'll put in the middle of the stage where everybody can kind of go up.
Yeah.
But then if anybody, once the iPad goes away for service, then they can control it with their phone.
Right.
And that's pretty cool. There's also some interfaces that they use. That, of course, we use Dante a lot. So they have Dante. They have additional S-Link boxes. They have Waves. If anybody's familiar with Waves, it's 64 inputs in, 64 inputs out at 96 kilohertz, and it goes to the sound grid, which Waves has created, which has a ton of awesome plugins.
Yeah.
And then you have Maddie as well if you use Maddie. So just a ton of great options with this board. I mean, it's one of my favorite. I mean, if we had, had Avantis at the time, we may have gone that route.
Yeah. That's
a little bit more in price, but that thing has basically, both boards have really the same engine that's processing all the audio in both boards. So
it's been really cool to work with those, because I ran sound for a couple weeks at CLC to help fill some shoes, and I hadn't worked with the SQ before then. And so you gave me like a rundown. This is kind of where things are. These are our mute buttons that we have programmed, and just kind of like specifics to the mixer. And I was able to quickly apply other digital mixer concepts to this one. And it was intuitive to get there and control and figure out, and, not bother anyone with, oh crap, I don't know where this button is. It was easy to click around and find within a few seconds.
Well, I look at a lot of mixers, and I see a lot of mixers that, man, they cover every square inch of the board. I mean, from top to bottom. Where Allen and Heath, they've simplified it. It's like you got a gain, you got a compressor, you got a limiter, you got a high pass filter, and then you got your, 4 knobs for EQ. Obviously, you can dive into the touch screen and you can get into a whole lot of advancement.
Right.
But like for somebody that doesn't know, I kind of keep them away from that, and I'm like, hey, if it starts clipping, roll down the gain a little bit.
Just touch.
Add a little bit more compression to it. You know, you need an EQ, you need to roll up 2K, go grab it right here and roll it up, and then, you know, rock the volume faders and be done. And, you know, I mean, there's a lot of people that are more advanced and they want to have everything, and then they can learn that. They've got the brain power to do it, but sometimes you got basic volunteers that need a basic board. This is a very, very advanced board with a very basic look.
That's what I liked, changing brands a little bit with the TF series. It's a lower tier than SQ. It's a little more entry level, but they've got this one knob feature that
what's it called? The smart knob, I think.
Smart knob, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
You can control any parameter with this knob. So like you click on the screen and that's where you do your navigation, but then say you need to click gain, you click the gain and adjust it with this knob. You click the EQ, you click this setting, adjust it with this knob. Click this setting, adjust it with this knob. And it kind of appeals to a people that need something simple. Yeah. Like one of my complaints with the TF series is that they have this 30 band, 32 band, 31 band GEQ, but you can only control 12 parameters on it. So it's a little limited. That's why I say it's lower tier than the SQ. But as far as simplification, like they've done a good job.
Well, I think that brings up the point and the fact that, you know, yes, we're big fans of the Allen and Heath SQ. But we walk into a situation and we want to kind of get to know, okay, who's going to be touching the board? You know, what's the volunteer base? What's their, you know, level of knowledge, things like that. And within what we have at our disposal, we'll find something that will work. Whether it's the TF, whether it's the SQ, whether it's something else. You know, based upon that, we want to put you in the right thing that's going to work for your needs, but also be when we're gone, we want to spend some time training, but when we're gone, it's not like you regret what we just did.
Yeah. So you get in the driver's seat for the first time and you're like, oh gosh, we don't want that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, cool. Well, that kind of wraps up our product review and brings us down to the best part of the show, what all the viewers want right here.
The dad joke of the day.
Take it away.
Jared, what did the 0 say to the 8?
I don't know.
Man, that belt looks good on you.
I was trying really hard. Every single dad joke, I want to figure out the punchline.
That's the fun part. Like,
I want to figure out the punchline, but you come up with dad jokes that I don't know.
It's like left field.
Left field. All right. Well, till next time, folks. We'll see you.